Hey, this is Alec. Welcome to White Whale Comics. Today, what I'd like to do is share what are my top 10 favorite covers of books that I own. You may have noticed in the title there's an asterisk. It's because I omitted two things: Amazing Spider Man and Valiant books. Because when I was going through my collection looking to see what I would include in this list, I realized I could probably fill up the whole thing with just those. So I'm probably going to do lists for those separately, just because there's a wealth of great covers there, in my opinion. Now these are also, as I said before, only the comics in my collection. There's certainly books that exist that I like the covers more, but I just don't happen to own them. And maybe if there's interest, I'll do a list of top 10 covers I don't own sometime as well. So I kind of blew it while trying to narrow it down to 10. I could only cut it down to 14. So I'm going to have 4 honorable mentions. Go through them pretty quickly though. First one is Wolverine number 27. Art by Jim Lee. And this is just a very nostalgic cover for me. In probably like 6th grade, it was the hottest book any of my friends and I could get our hands on. It's still a classic cover, but it's lost some of its luster for me. But Wolverine 27. Next book is The Fix, issue 3, second printing. It's a great minimalist cover. Really has this awesome 80s Miami Vice feel. I love the colors. I love, as you'll see throughout this list, minimalism tends to be a theme. But it's a newer book. Second printing. Didn't quite make the cut. Next book is Batgirl number 24, Joshua Middleton variant. The reason I put this in my honorable mentions is just because it's so new. I think it's an awesome cover. I don't want to take anything away from it. I don't know how smitten I am with it at the moment versus long term, so I put it in my honorable mentions. It's also a really hyped book, not compared to 23, but I actually like this one a bit better. My last honorable mention is Y the Last Man number 60. Art is by Massimo Carnevale. This is a tremendous cover, and I don't want to take anything away from it because I do think it stands on its own, but for me, I'm a little biased towards it because I loved the issue so much. I think it was a really fantastic ending to the series, possibly my favorite final book of a series ever. So I feel I'm a little bit biased towards it. So drop down to my honorable mentions. Alright, on to the actual top 10. The first book here doesn't really need much introduction. It's a pretty classic cover. Infinity Gauntlet number 1. Art by George Perez. It really just epitomizes a lot of what's great about comics for me. It's got a lot of characters on it. It's just an iconic image. For me, one of the things, I'll probably say this a few times throughout this list, it makes you want to pick it up off the shelf, which I think is a mark of a great cover. It's just really cool. Next one is another one that is, I think, probably generally considered to be one of the great covers of all time. Uncanny X-Men number 141. Art by John Byrne, who apparently is trend in my videos, as I mentioned in my last video as well. What I love about this cover is that it tells a story. It makes you want to open it and see what's going on with it. These 2 issues, Days of Future Past, were such a different direction for X-Men. And if you were a fan back when this came out and you saw this on the shelf, you were going to take a look. Next up is a more modern book, but I still think it holds its own with anything else on this list. Paper Girls #1. Art by Cliff Chiang. Has a very graphic feel. The yellow with the pink, it pops. When you see this on the shelf, you can't take your eyes off it compared to everything else, which is just literally a bright spot on the shelf. It's a really great representation of what a modern cover looks like. So yeah, Paper Girls #1. Next up is a cover by an artist who's really hot right now for covers, who is Jock, and that comic is Catwoman #43. This was, I think, right before the Adam Hughes run of covers for Catwoman, which are wildly popular, but for me are a little cheesecakey. And this, again, another minimalist cover, another great image that pops. Great movement, great action, great color. So for me, this beats out any of those Adam Hughes covers. Next up is another Marvel 90s book, Ghost Rider 15, with the first and the second print. Art by Mark Teixeira. This has a lot going for it for me. It has an image that really pops. To me, very iconic. You know, that might be because of when I was collecting comics in the 90s and how popular this issue was at the time. It also glows in the dark. Both of them do. And I love a gimmick cover. So, got my money twice. Alright, moving on to Descender #1. Art by Dustin Nguyen, who I think is just a top-notch talent. I don't know that he is mentioned enough in conversations about great current artists, but I think he is definitely up there. Amazing series. Probably going to do a video on it by itself, but really great cover. Captures the imagination. Descender #1. Next up is another book I have 2 copies of, but it's just doubles. New Mutants 18. Art by Bill Sienkiewicz. This is a really, once again, another bold image. Basically 2-color. That splash of light across the eyes pulls you in, and it's just dramatic and great. This run of this series right now is really hot between Legion and the New Mutants movie, and a lot of great covers in that run, but for me this is a cover in that run that's always been my top choice. Next up we've got X-Force #116. Art by Mike Allred. I think he's kind of an artist that, he's certainly popular, but I think a lot of people kind of love him or hate him because he's got a very unique style. For me, a unique style is what draws me to an artist. Everyone who can just copy Jim Lee or Todd McFarlane or whoever doesn't really do much for me, but someone who has a very identifiable style, Mike Mignola, Mike Allred, Humberto Ramos, I could go on. For me, those are the artists that really stand out in my mind. I love team books where they have groups on the cover. I don't know why. I just dig it. Only thing it doesn't have going for it is there's no dupe. Now this list has been in no particular order, except for this last book. This last book is my #1 cover of all time, probably never to be dethroned. It's got a lot going for it as far as I'm concerned. It's a 90s book. It's got a team shot on the cover. It's a gimmick cover. It's chromium. It's Generation X #1. Art by Chris Bachalo. I can't really explain necessarily why I love this cover so much, besides all of those things that I just listed. But it's colorful, it's exciting. I mean, you can't beat it. I'd buy 100 copies of this if I could. I mean, I don't know what I'd do with them, other than just line my walls. But awesome cover. My opinion, the best. Now, if you're counting, you'll notice that was only 9. Well, 13, including the honorable mentions. That's because one of the books is currently out at grading at CBCS. So I don't have it to show you, but that book is Fantastic Four, number 49. It's a classic Kirby cover. The colors on it, for me, really sell it. It's an introduction of a new villain. It's just everything you want in a Kirby piece. So when I get that back, I'll be sure to show it to you and show you the grade I got on it. So that's it, my top 14, top 10. Let me know if any of these books would be in your top 10 as well, or what would be in yours otherwise. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope to see you soon. Never turn your back on the ocean. Thanks for watching.